Good evening, everyone. I'm your host, comedian, magician, Danny Whitson. But it's all tricks aside, because tonight we're turning the paranormal into the normal. Join me as we explore the gray areas of reality. We're going to talk all things paranormal, UFOs, ghosts, cryptids, and aliens, and see how it's all connected. This podcast is brought to you by the Experiencer Support Association, and we are live. So if you're an experiencer yourself, or you're just plain nosy, be sure to send me your question and subscribe to the podcast. Now, get ready, because it's going to get deep. No, really, we're going to go way out there, because this is Beyond the TinFoil Hat. All right, welcome to Beyond the TinFoil Hat, and I'm your host, Danny Whitson, and I hope my paranormal junkies are doing good tonight, y'all. Boy, do we got some news, some big news. I don't know if you guys have heard, if you're following like I am, but in the UFO world, we just heard that MUFON has been hacked. Yes, the database has been hacked. We don't know who done it. Was it the government? Was it some 13-year-old who got tired of playing Call of Duty in his basement and got bored? Or was it aliens? I don't know. Who knows? But I'll tell you what, if you go over to the experiencersupport.org, our boy Ryan Stacy has put up an article discussing it, so you can look into some more info about it yourself. But definitely interesting news in the UFO world. MUFON's database has been hacked, y'all. All right, well, I hope my paranormal junkies are doing well, and I hope you are keeping the paranormal normal for me, because you're going to be excited about tonight's guest. Tonight's guest, not only are they a former employee of the Department of Defense, but also a lifelong contactee of extraterrestrial beings. Let's get a big welcome for tonight's guest, Nancy Thames. How you doing, Nancy?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you?
Doing well, and welcome to Beyond the TinFoil Hat. Now, I gave you a little brief intro, but if you don't mind, let everybody know a little bit more about you.
All right. My name is Nancy Thames. I am a lifelong contactee with interdimensional beings and positive extraterrestrials. And my first conscious memories go back to when I was 2 and 3 years old, and it has progressed all through my life up into the present. I have face-to-face contact and many, many experiences, and just learning and being educated on why it was happening to me, the purpose of it, and the reason why we are going through this ascension, and how it all plays together and works together to help humanity.
Now, okay, so this, first of all, you are a very interesting person. A lot of with the information, just, I mean, your whole bio and stuff is really cool. Now, you started off like, this is stuff that you were experiencing as a small child.
Up until the present day, but my first conscious memories are from 2 to 3 years old. And it was very pleasant experiences. I've always had grays, 3 grays. They always travel in 3, and they're always who comes down to get me, take me to craft. Once I get on craft, then I'm around other extraterrestrial beings and interdimensional beings. And then when it's time to return home, they'll use these same 3 grays. And I'm bonded with the female. One is a female. The other 2, I'm not really bonded with, but they always travel in 3s. But one, she is a female, and she is a brownish gray color. And she's always who does the legwork for them. And I have found out that she is a hybrid that was designed by the tall grays and the interdimensionals. And they created her with these other ones that travel with her She's, like I said, about 4 foot tall, and they created her because the extraterrestrials and interdimensionals are not compatible with the density of Earth. So in order to be able to do the back and forth work, they created these hybrids to do that.
Okay, let me back up because
Okay.
okay, I kind of want to. So you started having, you started seeing these beings whenever you were experiencing these beings when you were just a small child. Now, were these? Was this something that you just always knew, or was this something that you had to go back and kind of almost like break through to have this memory? Was this like a progressed memory type of thing?
I always knew. I always knew. And when I was young, I had no brain barriers. I had no reason to be scared. So it was all fun and games. And they made it very, very fun. Even if they sensed a little anxiety within me, they have the technology capability of changing scenery around you, or taking an image that I felt comfortable with from my mind, and I would see them as maybe a character in a book that my mother had been reading to me, a storybook. So
So now,
they don't change into this character, but they take the image, and then that's what I see them as.
Okay, now, so this didn't scare you as a child whenever
Not
you.
as a child, no. And when I got to be a teenager and I started reading books and being told not to talk about these kind of things, that people did not like to talk about it, and people would consider you crazy if you did. So I had been told that all along, even from when I was very little. Go back to bed, you're just having a dream, kind of brush it off type thing. Like children do experience things, and your parents deal with it the best way they can and know how. So, but as I got older,
you would tell your parents that you saw these things.
Yes, I would tell them that there's little beings in my room, and they would say, "Oh, that's funny. Go back to bed."
Well, I find that's interesting. One thing, Nancy, because me and you both are from the same area in the United States, and it can be very Bible Belt, very old school religion. Were your parents like that? Was there any?
They are not Bible Belt, but my father was in a person. He was a public figure within the community. So what we did, and what people thought of us, was of grave importance. So I was told, you do not talk about these things at school or to other family members, period. You do not talk about these things. And that even though my family, we might have discussions, not necessarily about my experiences, but about beings from, we're not being the only ones in the universe and things of this nature. It was okay for us, but it was not okay to discuss this outside of the house.
So it was kind of like the family secret. We didn't talk about this.
Well, they didn't take me serious. I think they thought that I was actually having dreams, or that's the impression I got. So as I would go in and tell them, one time it was around Christmas time, and I told my mother that I had gotten a little overnight suitcase, a little small suitcase for Christmas. And I told her, I said, I want to hide my suitcase. And she was like, why? I said, because they're going to want my suitcase. It's really cool. They're going to want my suitcase, and it's just the perfect size for them. And my mom's like, you don't have to hide your suitcase. I said, well, I'm going to put it under the bed and hide it. And and she just thought it was funny, but I was serious as a heart attack at the time, so, and I recall all these things, and it's just, they just thought that I was having some kind of silly dream or something, and they just brush it off. So, but when I got, a teenager, and then I started seeing things on television, and I started like reading books, and I would, when we would go to a bigger city, I grew up in a small town, but especially around holidays and things like that, we would go to bigger cities to shop. And my father liked bookstores, so I would creep around looking for areas that might have something about this kind of things going on. And, being in the Bible Belt, really there wasn't anything much to read. They just don't carry books like that, in your public libraries, or that just doesn't happen in the South at all. So, I just suppressed it because I was told not to, and I did what I was told, because I understood, that there were certain things that we just could not discuss. So I just left it alone and suppressed this for a very, very long time. So when I got in my 20s, I got married, and I was still having these experiences, but they were changing. They were giving me more of a conscious memory time. And I figured out that when I would experience anxiety or fear, because I knew before they were coming that they were coming. I could feel it all in
That's
my.
now I've heard that that's a common thing with people who
Yeah,
have experiences.
yeah,
They know when it's about to happen, almost kind of a thing.
yeah. And
Now,
so I knew.
okay,
So, and that sort of sets your frame of whether you're going to be okay with it, or if you're start to feel anxiety. And what happens is, when they get there, when I got to that point of being a little frightful of the experience and not understanding it, being a teenager, I would keep my eyes closed. But what they would do is they would they had they had a instrument, and they would hold it in their hand, and they would take it, and it would not touch my body, but they would take it, and it would be like a scan from head to toe, toe to head, several times back and forth. And what that did was it created a vibration, and my body would start vibrating. And then after a period of time, my body would start to float up off the bed. And at this point, if my eyes were closed, I would look down, and I would see I was physically floating up and holding the hands of the female gray. And this was not an out of body experience. This was not a dream.
this was actually really taking.
It was physically happening to me. And
let me ask you this, Nancy. Let me ask you this real quick, because you said you got married, correct? Yeah. Did your husband know about this before you got married? Is this anything that you discussed with him?
I told them, but I don't think they really believed me. I don't think they did, because
that's such an awkward thing in a way, because this isn't an everyday thing that
no,
people,
it's not.
Like, I got a secret to tell you, honey. I got a tattoo here, and also
what's really strange about it is that I've literally been in the bed with an ex-spouse. So and they never even were fully aware. You could say their name, you could do whatever, but they were put in a sleep paralysis is what they do to them.
Okay.
So, but for me, when they were doing this frequency, what they were doing is we live in a 3D world. So we vibrate at a very low frequency, being a human being. So what they were doing, and I didn't know this for a very long time, but they were changing my vibrational frequency to match their frequency. That way I could go through the wall. I could go through the window or through the door. And I never understood that until much later on, how they were doing that. But later they explained to me that they were changing my frequency.
Okay. So I want to do this. You as a teenager, you started putting two and two together. This is what's going on. This is who's been visiting me. These are things that's happening. And this is something that you just kind of accepted, and like, this is just my life. Okay. Yeah. And it's, and of course, this isn't the kind of things that you just go up to anybody and have a conversation with, because of,
No.
they think, oh, this person must be nuts or something, so of course you don't do stuff like that. But when you said whenever you got married,
Yes.
and by this time you've had these experiences to where this isn't in my head, I actually know this is going on.
Yes.
Did your husband and did they ever come around to believing you, to saying, wow, something's going on here? Or do you think it was something that was just always like, bah,
I think it was more like that, to be honest. They didn't mind me talking about it, but I don't know that I don't think if they had experiences, I did not know it. And we would never had an experience together. But so as I got older, and this continued to happen to me, and I became a mother, and I had two young boys at that time. They were very young, but of course they're older now. But we were on a vacation at the Marriott Hotel at Key West, right on the beach. And so I feel that they're coming, and I raise up in the bed and I look, and three grays appeared there into our room. And they were not the same ones that come for me. These grays were very short, 3 foot tall, and they were wearing robes, all the way down, robes, and had very high collars around the neck. And they were of more of a gray color, a kind of a metal gray color. So when I set up, one of them came towards me, took his hand, and on my heart side, left hand side, pushed me back down to the bed and told me telepathically, "This is not about you. Go back to sleep." And so he put me in a sleep paralysis, because when he did that and the other two started to go around to the other side of the bed, I realized, and he said, "This is not about you." I realized they were there for my two children. So I filled with anxiety and was very upset. And they put me in a sleep paralysis, and I could not move. I could not speak. I could not do anything. And nobody, my ex-husband was asleep, not, just sleeping, unaware of any of it. And the children were asleep, but they went over, and then through the corner of my eyes and stuff, I could see them getting them up and taking them. So then I did go to sleep, or either they blacked me out, one of the two.
Well, let me
Yeah.
ask. That's a very interesting where we're at there. That's very interesting. But I do want to. We got Ryan Stacy has a question for you, Nancy.
Okay.
He wanted to know: did you physically go through the door, or did you visualize going through?
No, I went through the door.
So
They totally took this scanner like thing and would go back and forth, and my body would start vibrating at a very fast, very unfamiliar feeling that was not unpleasant. It was just different. It was just very high frequency vibration. And then I would just start elevating. My body would be elevating, and then I would be holding her hand, and then we would proceed up through the ceiling. And I can remember like being kind of like halfway through and like, looking at her and questioning, how is this possible? And to be honest, she didn't, at that particular time, she did not answer me. That's one thing about I am bonded
she was
with
a
her.
female.
She's a female. Yeah. And I'm bonded with her, but they're very task oriented. There's no negotiation. There's no, they're not robots. Most people think that they are. They're biological, and they are a hybrid, and they were made by the tall grays and the interdimensionals to do this back and forth, and they created them so that their DNA would be more compatible with the density of Earth, and coming back and forth. So we are bonded, and I have love for her, but she's not. And I look at her as a ET mother kind of, but it's because she's actually been with me since birth, and I'll explain all that in a minute.
So, let's move back to the point to where they said this isn't about you. They go over to your kids.
Yes.
Okay. Now, as a mother, you had to have some type of
I was
mama bear syndrome.
I was very upset because I knew it was happening to me, and there was nothing I could do about it. But then to come to the realization that this is not just about me and it involves my children, that was very, very upsetting, very upsetting. So the next morning we all went to breakfast, and I asked them, because when I woke up, they were back in their bed and they were fine. And then we all got up and got dressed and then went to the restaurant to eat breakfast. And I asked them if they had any strange dreams or anything they'd like to talk about. And they were just continued to eat and just looked up at me like, like, why are you asking, kind of thing. And so I left it alone. So I didn't say anything. I left it alone because either they didn't have the conscious memory of it, or either they didn't want to talk about it. And I just left it alone. So when I got back home, I sat down on the floor and I started meditating. And I created what I called a safe space around me, meaning that I sat down on a carpeted floor, and then I took my fingers and formed a circle around me, because I felt like I was creating a safe place. And I was meditating with full intention, using my brain muscle as much as I could, pure intention directed straight towards them, and asking them, why is this all happening? Why are my children involved? Why? What is the purpose of this? Please explain to me. Please, face-to-face contact, explain to me. I need to know. And so I went to bed, and then later on, the Grays did come for me, and they took me before a group of elders. And the elders were interdimensional beings, and they were of different races, and there were many of them. It was like a council or a group. And so I went before them.
And this is why you were meditating? This is what you saw while you were meditating?
No, I meditated and asked for them to have face-to-face. I asked for them to give me answers. And then I went to bed. And then they came for me later on. Hours later, they came for me and took me to craft and took me before a group of elders. And these elders were of many different races, and they were all very, very tall, 7 to 8 foot different. Then they were not all the same race. They were all different. None of them looked alike or anything. So anyway, I asked them, why is this happening to me? What does this mean? And they told me that I had made an agreement before being born as a human being. I had made an agreement to come here and be here at this time for humanity, to help humanity to understand why they are here now, the purpose of them being here, clear up misinformation, clear up the fact that there's some things that people have been told that simply aren't true, and things like that. And that I would not remember this right away. And I said, well, I don't remember any of this. So then they showed me a vision of myself. And I was sitting in the vision. I'm sitting there waiting as an etheric type being. And I'm having a communication with the interdimensionals. And they're saying it's time for you to have your human experience. And when you it will be many years after you were born before you will ever remember any of this. When you go there, you will not remember this. And we will be visiting you throughout your life and helping you to remember and understand your choices and why you came here. And that's basically what happened to me. And it took a lot of years for me to even understand. And I've had many personal things happening that were not pleasant, were not good. And I've had a lot of beautiful things happen. And whenever I would have what I considered a very traumatic experience in my life, for one, I went through 2 divorces. So, you know, they would come to me and they would say to me, if this ever gets to be too much for you, you can always come home. And to be honest with you, never really resonated with me completely. I did understand they were saying that I could leave. I didn't necessarily know what that all involved, but I always said I want to stay here because I was a mother at this point, you know, a mother.
So are they saying, like, did you come from their dimension, their area, or is this somewhere that we all go somehow? We go to another dimension, or?
Well, as I got older, I finally was demanding more information, and they told me, you already know. And I'm like, I don't. But so anyway, long story short, it took a long time and I've had a lot of experience and things that they wanted me to learn and go through. But about a year and a half ago, something like that, I woke up in the middle of the night and my body shot straight up into a sitting up position. And these huge surges went straight through my head all the way down to the torso. And then I would fall back and then it would pull me up again. And this happened 3 times. And I didn't know what in the world was happening, except that it was an experience that they had given me because all of a sudden, it was like everything in the room changed after I had completed that cycle. And then it was like I was spinning and going somewhere. And then I ended up in a room that I was unfamiliar with. And then it was like I walked towards the closet and then the closet turned into a craft. And it was just weird. And
everything was kind of like happening in front of you, transforming.
Yeah, it was just very strange. But now I understand that they gave me a Kundalini awakening. And what they were doing is putting those surges through me to break up blockages or whatever. And then they were letting my subconscious open up into my human consciousness. And so when I went to them and asked them, is this what has happened? And they said, yes. And they said, now do you understand who you are? And do you understand what this means? And I said, I was an extraterrestrial. And they said, yes.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this, Nancy. Well, actually, we've got a question here from Liv Light for you. Liv wants to know, did they ever explain what the purpose of no memory, no recall serves as humans in regards to the interdimensional worlds?
They don't make those decisions about what human beings experience. We are here on free will. So most extraterrestrials and interdimensionals, the positive, what I call the positive extraterrestrials, honor our free will, and they will not cross over the cosmic realm boundaries of interfering with us. They're limited as to certain things that they can do. So that's another reason why they wanted me to be here, is to explain that the extraterrestrials, one race of grays, there's many different races of grays of many different heights and colors. but there's one race that has in the past worked with government, and they did genetic experiments on human beings. And I call them negative because they are not demonic, but they are self-serving, only interested in their need, have no interest in humanity or the effects of an abduction, how the effect that mentally how it affected a human being or any of the outcomes. They could care less. They were doing their task that they decided they wanted to do, and they did not care. So, but when they started doing that, they were excommunicated by the positive and the interdimensional. So most grays have what we call a collective consciousness, but the simple fact that they crossed over the boundary with humanity, they were excommunicated, and they do not share the collective consciousness with the good positive extraterrestrials.
So you're saying we've got there's good guys and there's bad guys.
Yes, but
just
like
in real life here on Earth, here in this dimension, we've got good people and we got
the
bad
ones that we were introduced to first were not the good guys. They're not demonic. They all have souls, and they all believe in a creator source. Creator source would be kind of like what we call our God, but they look at it quite differently than we do. They do not have all these man-made, made up religions and all these different things. They believe the creator source is neither male or female, and it is the creator of all universes and all galaxies. And because we are not alone, and we've never been alone.
Let me ask you,
universe is teeming with life.
Let me ask your theory on this, because a lot of times they seem to always come to people while they're sleeping, and listen to kind of like what you said. It's like they kind of enter your consciousness first and then bring you into almost another real reality. Because what you said, look, I really experienced going through the door. I really experienced these things in like a real physical, tangible place. But so is it like at first? Maybe the reason why they show up while you're sleeping, because it's almost your consciousness is shut off to this reality, and is it maybe like a portal to somewhere else? Maybe
we have less boundaries. Dream state is a great way to approach humanity and human beings. So what I've figured out and what I've been told, or they confirmed, is when we experience it, all extraterrestrials, when they have a face-to-face contact with a human being, they are telepathic, and they do not have all these emotions that we have. Okay. We are very unique, very different. So whatever we feel as far as fear and anxiety, they feel it tenfold. They do not like this feeling at all. They do not know what to do with it. They do not experience these feelings in their world or their realm of living. So rather than deal with us being frantic and upset and all these things, they'll simply tap us on the forehead and put us in a trance-like functional state. So you're fully functional, but it's like you're in a trance. So it's kind of like you've had a sedated state without the sedation. They just simply do this, and that way you can have the full experience with them, and they can do their task at hand that they want to do, or in my case, teaching me things. I've never been abducted, and I was never part of a hybrid genetic program or anything like that. But
so they have told you that there are human hybrids walking around the planet today.
They did not come out and say that there are human hybrids walking on the planet today. What I know is that there were some created, but they would not be safe here on Earth. They would not be accepted. They would not be safe at all.
Nancy, why do you think? Why are they coming here? Why?
Oh, I know why. I know why. Well, there's a grave difference between the negative extraterrestrials and the positive extraterrestrials. The positive extraterrestrials, by cosmic law and us being here on free will, have always let us do our thing, make our own mistakes, fix our own problems. The negative ones work with different fractions of our governments and elites, people with a lot of money that did exchanges for technology, exchanges with them for different reasons, different things, but they all were self-serving, selfish, nothing to benefit humanity. So they set on technology, they set on a lot of things and traded out. And so our first taste of extraterrestrials really isn't the best taste, and it's also not the real. They're very small in number compared to all the positives and the interdimensionals. So what happens is when the interdimensionals and the positive realize that we are fixing to go through an ascension, we are waking up, we are reaching higher consciousness. And when we do this, that means that they can actually have a intellectual dialogue with us, and we understand they are not gods, they are not angels, they are simply beings billions of years ahead of us in evolution and way above us in technology. So they've just been waiting for us to reach this pivotal moment, and we are here. That's why they wanted me to be here. That's why I chose to be here. And I'm not the only one. There's a million others like me that have incarnated here to represent different races of extraterrestrials and interdimensionals to help humanity raise its frequency to become higher consciousness and go into the fourth dimension and on up further. So most people don't realize that the fourth dimension is not a physical place. These things are literally higher consciousness. So we as humans are evolving. We are going through an evolutionary stage, and we're all, not all at the same time, but it's slowly reaching out, and everyone is becoming more aware of the world around us and aware that some of our old ways we are simply outgrowing, and some of these systems of like our banking and pharmaceutical companies, certain things are breaking down and they will no longer serve us as we become of higher consciousness. So they basically have been waiting for us to wake up. And another thing too is like they see our earth as a living conscious being. So that was one thing that they wanted my son and I. They orchestrated us to go to Mexico back in August, September, and through that period of time. And they wanted us to go down there and meet an indigenous tribe called the Zapotecs. And they wanted us to meet them because this tribe is as old as the Mayans and the Incas. And they were at their evolutionary stage of ascension and
So
reaching higher consciousness.
Okay. So you mentioned your son. You mentioned your son here. So I want to back up real quick. And earlier, when you were talking about like you did ask your kids if they had an experience. So it turns out, did one of your kids remember this or have some type of?
They both do. But so, one is in tune with them as I am, and has downloads and has face-to-face contact with them. My youngest son, he's slower paced, and that's fine. Not everybody is on their own spiritual path and own way of doing this. And all of us have never pushed one another. It's not an easy this is not easy. And
so they told you. So they told you guys to go to Mexico and meet these indigenous people there in Mexico.
Yes, because they were on the verge of ascension and it collapsed because their younger generations basically abandoned their tribe, and they lived. It took us 3 hours to go up this mountain to where they were. And when we got up there, they are the most eco-friendly people I've ever seen in my life. And they grow what they need to eat, and they forage through the forest, and they collected rainwater. Some of them had electricity, some of them didn't. They had their own language. They didn't speak Spanish. They were different, and they had a real appreciation for nature and felt at one with nature and all things, all living beings. So they wanted us to meet them, for one, to understand that their younger generation abandoned them and their culture and their traditions because of their fascination with technology and materialistic things. So they wanted us to understand the impact of how technology, if used improperly, how destructive it can be to humanity. If we use it correctly, because they said we should consider it as a man-made tool. It was made and created by men, but we have to keep it as a man-made tool. It needs to be shared among all of humanity, not just used for certain elites or groups for them to benefit and the rest of us suffer. So, because we have been living a life of being manipulated, there should be no diseases. There should be no poverty. We should be using no fossil fuels, any of these things. And everybody knows this, but we have been manipulated and taken advantage of our lower consciousness by these elites, cabal, black hats. And then they went in cahoots with the negative extraterrestrials and got some of their technology, and they all used
that's a common theory, Nancy. I got to say, like, one of the theories out there where they talk about why, if extraterrestrials have been coming here and they've got this technology, how come, we're not using it, or what would it do to the economy, the super rich? Well, you've got the people who, if the billionaires who are making money off of fossil fuels, and
right.
And if there's a way to travel much cleaner and quicker through their technology, well, that would take money out of the richest pocket. The rich people's money. Right. That I'm on that. I'm on board with that 100%. So, and a lot of times, technology is supposed to make life cheaper. But if you look, it's actually done the complete opposite for some.
That's because who's in charge and who's manipulating it to their advantage, not humanity's. So if we use it as the benefit humanity, we're waking up and we're going to realize that these old ways of being manipulated and controlled will no longer serve us. And that's why they're reaching out to humanity, because our government is controlled by these black hats elites. They put players in government and then manipulate them into doing what they want.
Well, I tell you what, this is what we'll do, because you do have a background working for the government, which is very interesting to me. So I tell you what, this is what we'll do, Nancy. We'll get over here to these messages. We'll take a little commercial break. When we come back, I want to talk to you about the Department of Defense and kind of your opinion about what's going on right now with the government. Okay. Guys, stay tuned. We'll be back with Nancy Thames.
Have you ever wondered, or maybe just thought to yourself, if there were others just like you? You know, people with extraordinary abilities, psychogenic advancement, and perhaps unique intuitions. Maybe you just wondered if there were other people who experienced unimaginable, unexplained, or even unusual and paranormal events. Are there people who have more questions, more fears than answers? Well, you're not alone. You've never been alone. We believe you. Sign up for EA today.
It's your business. It's your property. Your assets are worth protecting. Blacklight Investigative and Surveillance Services specializes in patrolling and inspecting residential or commercial property against fire, theft, vandalism, terrorism, and illegal activity. People and buildings are monitored to prevent crime. Keep your property, your people, and your assets safe from threat. Our elite staff are dual licensed private investigators and security guards. Blacklight Investigative and Surveillance Services. Go to blacklightiss.com.
All right, we're back here with our guest, Nancy Thames. And I tell you what, Nancy, this has been an exciting episode so far, but I've got to ask, now, in your bio, it says you are a former Department of Defense employee. And now, with everything in the news right now, which I know you see everything going on right now with the UFO disclosure and whatnot, what is your take on this? Is this us or is this them? What's going on?
Well, I did work for the Department of Defense, and I did have a security clearance. And I was a dental assistant for the Army, but I was a civilian, and the Department of Defense put me with the Army. So anyway, it was great. I loved it. And I learned a lot about technology, which has helped me to use discernment about the mummies that were shown in Mexico. I know how to read the scientific evidence because I worked with 3D imaging, and you cannot cheat or lie or put fake bones in, things like that. But anyway, one thing that I've learned is that a lot of people can work for the government. A lot of people can have a security clearance, but that does not necessarily make them an authority on a lot of these things that some people claim to have the knowledge about. And what I did was important, but it had nothing to do with extraterrestrials, and it didn't affect my experiences. I continued to have them. I did not tell them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, with you being around that type of
Yeah.
environment, and now you see kind of like what's being reported, and of
Yes.
course, you know, like right now, Congress has never in the history ever have
Ever
shown
talked
this
about
much
this. Yeah.
attention
I
to
know. It's amazing.
UFOs, which is exciting, which is a
It
very
is.
exciting time to be alive.
It is.
We have, I mean, you know, our Tim Burchett here in right
Yes.
out of Knoxville,
Yes.
who, you know, I've just recently became a big fan of his because he is taking charge of trying to get some answers, and I really love the way his stance on it is he's saying, look, I'm not trying to convince you to believe in this or believe in little green men or anything, but I want to know where the money's going.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
as taxpayers, we deserve to know a little
No, we should
something.
be getting the truth about things too. You know,
Absolutely. And
we
there's
need to
things
know who
flying
we
around.
are, what our true heritage is. We need to know the truth about our planet.
Well, let me ask you, because you were talking about the good, you know, the good
Mhm.
grays and then the bad grays, and you know, the ones that are kind of like, here's technology for something that you can give us. Are the Tic Tacs and all the things that we're seeing zooming around our sky that our Navy's seeing? Do you think this is the U.S. military's top secret stuff that we've learned from them, adapted technology from them, or is this really, or is this them just kind of like saying, we don't give a damn if you see us or not, we're here doing it? What's your opinion?
I know for a fact that they send down probes. When I say a probe, it wouldn't be like our little drones. It would be something, you know, and they're doing that for a lot of different reasons. And they have been here for a while. This is nothing new, and they are not hiding from anyone. The problem is we live in a 3D world, and so our eyesight is limited to be able to see what is actually in our skies. But if we use the night vision goggles with infrared military grade, you'll be able to see all kinds of things going on in the sky. And also in our whole solar system, in our whole galaxy, it's teeming with life, and there's life everywhere out there. And we are now going through our extension, and as this happens slowly, we're going to start to see these things with our own eyes. These things, we're going to start to see them. So I think a lot of it, you know, they don't know how to tell humanity that the word technology is not even, they are billions of years ahead of us in every way. So there is no such thing as time. There is no such thing as currency. There is no such thing as the word technology. They're beyond all these things. There is our physics, our sciences, they do not apply. They are so far ahead, we cannot even comprehend. So for them to go home and tell their family members that we know absolutely nothing about this technology, how we can't even begin to replicate it. Their crafts are living beings. Their crafts are living beings. We'll never be able to fly one of their crafts because their craft are conscious living beings. And when an extraterrestrial is born and they procreate, they'll have at least one child offspring. And if that child, if he's designed to be a pilot, then he and a craft are bonded, just like I am with the gray that comes for me. There'll be no other gray that comes for me. And there'll be no other pilot for that craft. Only when they get in, he sits in and gets comfortable, and then they connect consciousness. And he simply tells the craft, he or she tells the craft where they want to go. And they go. And they don't use fuels like we use fuels. They don't use all these wonderful propulsion systems that we come up with. They simply use frequencies and higher consciousness and project these where they want to go, and they go. So this is a hard thing for them, one, to accept and explain to other countries. Who wants to be the first country to say, we can't touch this? We don't understand this. We can't begin to explain this to our humanity, or to show all the vulnerabilities that this displays. So yeah, it's a little bit scary, but the beautiful part is that the interdimensional and the positive extraterrestrials are not here to do anything other than assist humanity. They do not want to take over. They do not want to be in charge. They see us as children, and they played a part in our creation and a part of our planet's creation and all the things on our planet. And they see our planet and everything on it as a living being. Our trees are living beings. Our oceans, our water are living beings. Everything has a consciousness. The consciousness is not like a human consciousness, but it's still a consciousness. So, and they communicate. We don't see these things because we live in a 3D world, but our scientists already know that plants and things communicate, and our planet Earth. So when we started playing with weapons of mass destruction and nuclear weapons, that was a wake-up call to the rest of the universe, and take notice of us and realize we need to be watched. Because the problem is, because of the fact that our planet is a living being and has a consciousness, everything on it, all fauna, trees, everything. What we used to know but have forgotten is our connection with our planet, our connection with all things living on this planet, which also means our connection with the universe and everything under all that's made by the creator source. We are all connected. So what affects one affects all. So when we play with this technology and wipe ourselves out, what affects us affects all, because it creates havoc, the balance of our nature, the balance of and it ripples out into the universe and creates havoc and terrible things, because we are all connected. We are all one.
And I can totally get on board with everyone being connected. I'm a firm believer in that too.
So that's why we're fascinated.
Live Light has another question here for us. Liv asks, does decreasing their frequency to access the third dimension cause them illness?
I know it's uncomfortable to them. I don't, to be honest, there is no such thing as illness. They are, and when you reach that stage of evolution, there is no disease at all. There is no disease. There is no negativity.
You did mention earlier that, the emotions,
they don't feel
human beings being
with
so emotional, they can pick up on that, and that makes them feel uncomfortable.
They don't understand it, and so it's easier just to tap us out, because you can't rationalize with an irrational person. And the ones that were here doing those type tasks were self-centered, and they were only interested in the task at hand. They did not care how it affected you mentally or emotionally or anything like that. So it made it easier for you. They did you a favor, actually, by tapping you out, because a lot of people simply, they weren't necessarily doing, in all cases, doing something wrong. Sometimes they're checking on the evolutionary stage or whatever genetic thing they were working on. I do not know everything, and I don't pretend to, but they are task oriented, and nothing interferes with what they've come here to do. And so they're not demonic, but they don't they're task oriented and they did do their job and at whatever,
Well, now you
So-
mentioned that. Okay, the bad ones. Let's talk about the bad ones for a second here. Have you had experiences with them?
When I lived in Australia for 5 years,
Australia. Wow, you've been everywhere, Nancy.
yeah, I lived up on the mountains again. I seem to be attracted to, the outback type stuff. So I lived up on the mountains. It was called Mount Me. And this was overlooking the Pacific Ocean and overlooking the Glass House Mountains. And I went up there because I love stargazing and the Milky Way belt and the Milky Way and Southern Cross and all these things, the stars. There was no light pollution. So that's what got me up there. But it also put me in a ideal isolated place. So what happened to me is I felt the presence, and then all of a sudden they blacked me out. And then when I woke up, I was on a craft, and this is why I was living in Australia. So I was on a craft somewhere. And when I woke up, there were these humans, females, running around me. And there were some grays, yes, some grays. And they were all in a frantic state. And they were like, and I became conscious. And I looked up and they were like, take her back, take her back. We cannot touch her, take her back. Because as I was younger, they would change my frequency with a handheld type device. But now, and for a pretty good while, they don't have to do the scanning thing on me. I am at a higher, I'm at a higher frequency. I am at a higher frequency. And so I know immediately when any extraterrestrial is around, I can feel their vibrational frequency. And apparently when they got me on craft, the extraterrestrials and they all realized that I was of a different frequency and that they had better send me out because I'm bonded with the interdimensionals and of the positive extraterrestrial. I'm bonded with them.
So they kind of knew like, hey, this one's off.
Take her back. And so I got back. And then when I woke up, I was like, what in the world was this? So Pine Gap is a military installation, kind of like our Roswell, but only Pine Gap is in Australia. And by walking distance, it was a long ways from where I was. But by a craft or any type of crafts, it would have been nothing for them to get me. And that they did. They tried to, yeah. And they did get me, but then they sent me immediately back.
Now, do you think, why do they care about what the others think? Well,
because they are of higher technology, spiritually more evolved. They are of a dimensionals where our extraterrestrials are within our solar system and galaxy, however you want to look at that. But they are like from places that we know about in Earth, but they're interdimensional. So they're of
you're saying the good ones are interdimensional and the bad ones are
good ones can travel interdimensional by the grace and technology of the interdimensionals. They give them the means to do so because they are all in a collective consciousness and they work together. They all work together. The negative extraterrestrials are not part of that. So they can never leave our solar system. So as long as they were here and working with these fractions of our government that were controlling us, they were the top dogs. They had their little niche over us and they played us like little puppets. And so they've never wanted us to realize our place in the universe. They've always kept humanity separated and this started eons ago, separations of religions, separations, all these racism, all these things to keep humanity, these things were instilled intentionally to keep humanity separated and in fear of each other.
Why do you think the negatives want that? Why do you think that's
because they are working with these other fractions and they are all self-serving, getting what they wanted. So the grays, where they were getting to do, they could have been a race of all scientists. Usually grays, they do procreate and they eat by making a nutrient and they rub it on their skins and they absorb it into their skins and then they excrete it through their skins. They don't eat like we do and stuff.
Wow, bummer.
And yeah, and they don't have all the emotions and things that we do, but they do bond, a male and a female bond, and they usually have one offspring, and that done like in a test tube type environment. It's so, and usually each races are usually, they're all explorers, or another race, they're all doctors or scientists or whatever. So for whatever reason, that particular race, they were probably geneticists or DNA specialists, whatever. And that was what they did. So, you know, they were interested in science, the science of the planet, you know, studying us genetically, maybe mixing DNAs up in test tubes to see what would happen. I don't quite know all that stuff, you know, but I do know that they're usually where we are, like our neighbors may be different in the grays. They're usually the whole race is of one
group of,
and they work together.
One group of explorers, one group.
Yes.
And but see, okay, well, one of the common emotions that, and it's not a good thing, but it's one thing that all human beings do have in common, which is kind of gross, but it is greed. And you know, somebody, you know, some of us are a little worse than others. So does it seem like this species of extraterrestrials, in particular negatives, you think greed is something that they have as well? Is this something that
the way I see it is that they are self-centered and only think of themselves. So
it's just like an emotion, an empathy emotion. They don't possess any type of empathy, anything.
No empathy for human beings, where the others have empathy. And I also know from listening to different experiencers and stuff, even though I consider them negative, some of them tend to have a little empathy or tend to have maybe get even bonded like with certain human beings. You know, for example, like Whitley Strieber talks about his experience, that they were like kind of playful and, you know, tricksters, like kind of, you know, so they're not even the ones that were in that race and they were doing those things. Some of them were a little different, and like some people had better experiences than other people, you know, and I think a lot of that is the individual's interpretation of the situation, and the fact that being around an extraterrestrial, the frequency that they give off is not like anything that we've ever experienced. And because of us being human, and, you know, back when the cave days and all these things, everything around us was considered a predator. So when we have these feelings and it makes our body feel, we don't understand why it's feeling what it's feeling, it's either fight or flight. And so when they came in contact, that's what your mind does. So you automatically see it as a predator. And so a lot of it could be misunderstanding of the whole situation. But again, they really don't have empathy for it.
So, well, Nancy, okay, at the beginning of the show here, you talked about, you know, your earliest experience as a child with these things. When was the last time they came to you?
Oh, I see them very often, pretty much nightly, either face to face or in dream state. And sometimes it's like, I wonder how much of my life am I spending there with them.
When was the last time you saw face to face? Your face to face encounter?
Well, the last time that I actually ran fingers through their hands and touched them and they touched me was September and October, when I was in Mexico with my son, and they came to the cabin we were in every single night, and I would stand there and holding hands. And
so, I mean, did they just appeared? Is it how, or
yes,
did the room change and you were there with them, or
the room did not change. I'm to the point now where they don't have to do that, you know, but I do, you know, when I start feeling these different vibrations and frequencies, I have to remind myself I've done this before and fight back the feelings of fear and stuff, because it's just natural. That's what your mind doesn't understand. And a lot of times, if they sense that or think that I'm gonna not be able to like sometimes like the coming back part for me, once I get on craft and the coming back part, there's something about the process of how I'm getting here, and it makes me feel, I don't throw up, but I feel very much like a roller coaster, like it's very strange. And it's like your body just, it has all these feelings you've never experienced. And so sometimes they do still black me out for things like that. Or I wake up right at the end of it, and then I'm like, oh, wow, you know.
So, okay, so Nancy, but so you said the last time that you were, you know, face to face,
well,
was in October, and they came to the cabin where you guys were staying at in Mexico.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Is this like a visit, just like, you know, your aunt and uncle come by, you know? I mean, is it kind of something like, I mean, how? What did you? I mean, what are they telling you when they come and see you? What's? I mean.
Well, the female gray, she's not as talkity like the tall grays or the interdimensionals. When she talks to me, I know she's female because we have a bond, and she's constantly always holding my hand, always, you know, embrace with me one way or another. And I'm always like telling her she feels cold or whatever. And she really doesn't even respond to things like that. She's task oriented too, but I know we're bonded and I feel the love. But when I get on craft, it's really different. Like when I communicate with the tall grays or with the interdimensionals, when they're telepathically talking to me, I can sense the difference between male and female. Easily can tell.
Now,
and I can also.
Can your son do this as well? You said your son was with you.
Mm-hmm.
Did he? Was your son there experiencing
at the same time? They do not take us at the same time. Okay. They will not take us at the same time, and I understand why they don't do that, and that's because of the mother-son connection. And actually, now looking back, now that I understand all this, they did me a favor by letting me see them being taken for their first time. They could have easily done it without me knowing, but they wanted me to know, and they wanted me to understand that this was all of us had made agreements to come here and be a part of this, and we all have a part to play to assist and help humanity. So, and the reason now they still won't, and they still tell me when they come, if they're coming for my son, they'll say, this is not about you. And they don't put me in a sleep paralysis anymore. I accept it and I just lay back down. And then he has his experience, and vice versa. If they come for me, and so I'll still see him, he's still at a point where he wants to get up and be involved. You know, he'll be like trying to get up out of the bed, and they have him in a paralysis state where he cannot. And so, and the reason why is because of the mother-son bond, that maternal bond. We would be so concerned and worried about each other that we would lose focus of the task or the thing being taught to us, the task at hand. And so, and one of the things they wanted us to also learn there was that I went outside and they took their hands out like this and they said, everything is alive. Everything is alive. Everything is one, and we're all connected. So, and if they took us both, we would be looking at each other and not paying attention and focusing in on the purpose of the whole visit.
Well, I'll tell you what, Nancy, we got another question here from Liv Light. Liv is just killing it with some fantastic questions tonight. Thank you so much, Liv Light. Liv wants to know, Nancy, do you think it's possible people are having interdimensional experiences without any consciousness memory of it?
I think now, I know for a fact that motherships, and they came in big numbers for this momentous awakening of humanity. This is a momentous time to be alive. You said that earlier, and it absolutely is. This is the biggest thing that we've ever gone through, humanity's ever gone through. And it's happening. It's happening. And they are here waiting. And they are putting surges of love all around our planet, helping us to raise our consciousness and frequencies. There's beings here from everywhere. And yes, they are entering dream states and giving humanity little bits and doses of understanding our place and our connection to the universe and our place and our connection with them. And hoping, well, they want us to look within and remember who we are, deep in our soul, deep in our heart, not what this world has made us into, but our true inner selves, and wake up and realize our place and that we are all connected and we all are one. So they're patient. This won't happen overnight, but they are here, and we are through dream state, and they are putting energy surges all around us.
So do you think we will see this in our lifetime? Do you think?
I think we will. I do. But I also know that we're not going to be pushed any quicker. Everybody has to wake up, not just a few of us. And nobody's going to be left behind. That's not how the world operates or the universe operates. We are all one, meaning we are all going to wake up. Maybe not exactly at the same times, but eventually we will. And this is a worldwide phenomenal thing. It's not isolated to certain areas. It's the whole world. So we're talking about, there's a lot of, they showed me visions. There's so many indigenous people still on our planet. There's so many things that they love about our planet. And that's why they're here helping us, because they love us, but they love all these other things too. And even the countries where they're playing with these nuclear weapons or threatening each other, however you want to phrase that or put that, there's so many innocent bystanders within those countries. And they are peaceful, loving, benevolent beings. They do not hold grudges. Nobody will be punished for any of the mishaps.
So, we've got one more question here. Another question from Liv Light.
Okay.
Is that the message they want humanity to know? Know our authentic selves, raise our frequencies. Yes. We are all energy and all connected. This is what they're wanting us to know.
Yes, they want us to wake up and realize our connection with our own planet and show it more respect.
Realize so they are concerned with pollution and war, yes, and all these horrible things
in their world. There are no such thing as wars, and they are at a higher frequency, which means higher consciousness spiritually. This is how we evolve and become a more peaceful human beings. We will outgrow all these old ways that no longer serve us, we will become better human beings. And I know that sounds strange and weird, and some people say that will never happen. It's happening, and it's going to continue to happen.
And
And I
Nancy,
believe it.
and you yourself, you feel the things, the positives and things that
Yes.
they've brought into your life.
I am a spiritual, and I'm at a higher consciousness, and I'm at a higher frequency. And I know that by being at a higher consciousness and frequency and refusing to look at the negative things in life, I don't even turn my TV on most of the time, because I do not want outside influences of negative. I don't like being around negative people or negative things. So by learning to become a more positive human being, and starting simple, every negative thought, replace it with 2 positive thoughts. Don't say, oh, it's a crappy day. Hey, well, even though it's could be prettier, we're going to make the best of it.
I think
Learning to be positive, and all sickness, diseases, and things are created from negativity. Nothing good ever comes from negative vibes or negative. Nobody wants to be around negative things. The more that you learn to be positive, it radiates around you, and everybody around you picks up on it and wants to be like that. And it's like a loving virus that spreads throughout humanity. And that's
absolutely positivity is contagious.
And that's what's happening to us. And it's a good thing. It's a good thing. We are waking up.
I can get down with that 100%.
Yeah.
I tell you what, Nancy, because where's some stuff that our listeners can learn more about you and more about your stories and stuff like that?
Well, I have timefordisclosure.com is the website. And I have a Facebook group, Time for Disclosure / We Have Never Been Alone / We Are the Disclosure, because I truly believe all of us, we don't need the government. We, humanity, we are the disclosure. We are the change the world needs. Us waking up and realizing our place and who we are. We are the disclosure. We are the ones that need to change the world for future generations. So yes, anywhere you can find me. I belong to a lot of groups. All groups are good. And all of them try to keep positive people in the groups, and we're all working at this together. We're pretty much everyone that I see, we realize this is a universal unity job, and we are all needed, and it's time for us all to step forward and work together and realize we are all one.
I can totally get down with that. And especially, I mean, you can, I do watch the news. I do watch some of these things, and I can tell you, Nancy, we need it. We definitely need it more than ever. So I think
it's not going to happen overnight, but they are very patient. There is no such thing as time to them. There is no deadline. They've seen other beings in the universe go through this very exact same thing. This is nothing new to them, and they know how to do that, and it will be done in a beautiful, slow process so that everyone has time to digest it. And I think the experiencersupport.org is very instrumental for, as we all wake up, more people are going to come out of the closet, so to speak, and start remembering things, and they're going to need support groups like this organization that y'all represent, and other ones out there. Even all mental health therapists need to be educated on these things and ready to help humanity, because there's going to be a lot of changes in the future, and a lot of things that we've been told were lies. A lot of things, for whatever reasons they had, but we have been denied our heritage and facts about our planet and the history of our planet, and these things are going to surface, and it's going to be a shell shocker to a lot of people. So groups like what y'all support and represent are very important, and I will always have things like that, links to things, support groups for people, because we have to support and work together to get through anything this big.
And I think it's important to, like a big shout out to Ryan Stacy,
Yes.
For creating the experiencer support, group, because, people need a safe place to where they can come with their stories and their experience.
More people are going to start waking up, and we're going to be there. We're going to be the stepping stones to help them into this understanding. So it's important.
Well, I tell you what,
Ryan, it's
pretty
important.
cool. Real quick, Ryan has a question here for you. Nancy, are you interested in writing for TESA, the Experiencer Support Association?
I'd be more than happy to.
That's awesome. Well, definitely, I'm sure Ryan will be in touch with you after, this episode. This has been a fantastic interview. Very interesting. Very interesting.
Thank you. I hope it is. I meditate and I talk with them to help me to be relatable. I want people to understand I am truthful. I'm speaking of true experiences, and this is a worldwide phenomenon about humanity. This is not about me. This is not about anybody. This is about all of us around the world, and this is big, and we all chose to be here for the reason, and this is the most beautiful time to be alive, and we're experiencing it together.
Well, I tell you what, definitely relatable from one Tennessean to another.
That's right.
And I tell you what, real quick before we get off here, what's the name of the group there? If somebody wants to go find you on Facebook, join the group, what's the name of it?
Time for Disclosure.
Oh, Time for Disclosure.
And then I have a slash line that goes, "We have never been alone."
Okay,
Yeah.
Time for Disclosure. We have never been alone. Guys, I hope you have joined this. Thank you so much, Nancy Thames, for coming on Beyond the TinFoil Hat. Hope to hear more from you soon on experiencersupport.org. Nancy, once again, thank you so much.
All righty. Peace, everyone.
All right, guys, I hope you have joined this episode with Nancy Thames. This was very interesting. A lot of cool stuff covered in this. If you have not done so, be sure to get over to the experiencersupport.org. Check out the latest news about MUFON being hacked. Also, stay tuned for any really cool articles that'll be popping up written by our members of TESA. If you have an experience you would like to talk to or share, reach out to Ryan Stacy at experiencersupport.org. He will get back with you. And listen, believe you, this is a safe place for you to come with your stuff. Also, let me give a shameless plug about myself real quick. For you guys that would like to know more about Danny Whitson, this is what you can do. You can go over to Facebook at Danny Whitson Magic and Comedy, and that's my Facebook page. You can follow me there. That's where I post where I'm going to be doing shows. I travel all over. I do shows. Afterwards, a lot of people like to come up and talk to me about the paranormal, like to talk to me about UFOs, like to talk to me about ghosts. I love talking to folks after my shows. Also, you can give me a follow at Super Magic Boy on Instagram, and you can learn more about me at DannyWhitsonMagic.com. I'm more than just a paranormal host. I promise. I tell you what, guys, next week I'm excited with our guest. We got Dr. Gary Sigmund. He's a neurosurgeon, and he's going to be talking about the paranormal and consciousness. So can't wait for that one next week. Guys, this has been Beyond the TinFoil Hat. Thank you guys so much. I'm your host, Danny Whitson. See you guys next Thursday. All right, that does it for this episode of Beyond the TinFoil Hat. A big shout out for tonight's awesome guest, and a bigger shout out for everyone who tuned in. And if you haven't done so yet, be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube or wherever it is you listen to your podcasts. And like always, be sure to stay curious, heed the world, and keep the paranormal normal. I'm your host, Danny Whitson, and this has been Beyond the TinFoil Hat.